Skip Weber of the Weber Automotive Group.
A lot of 2026s have come in. Several of our brands, Traverse, Trailblazer, Equinox, we're all about 2026. I think Traverses, we still have a few 25s left, but the Equinox we've been selling 26 for a long time. But the reason why I say that is the stuff that we still have 25s, it's getting to be the point now. This is where there's a bit of extra money from the factory to clean out the old model. Usually September was the sweet spot for it, but it's a little bit sooner now. And it was usually all brands together. Now it's staggered. Right now is the time for a little bit better savings. Now, the other side of that is the selection's a little more limited. There's nothing coming behind them. If we don't have the color you want on the 25 Traverse, we don't have it coming behind it typically. But we can still work with you and find it somewhere else or whatever. My point is, good time to save a little bit of extra money buying the 25 new vehicles as the model year's about ready to complete switch.
Granite City, Columbia, Illinois, Olive and 270, and online at WeberChevrolet.com. The Weber Automotive Group.
Hi, I just wanted to let you know that JC is out there running his mouth. Let me read you a comment that he left to someone. Hello, Beth, you Nazi cow.
I just woke up. Who are you guys hating today?
Who are we hating today?
Yeah.
Name somebody.
Well,
It's your.
Get off. Brian. Just get off. Brian, I need the phone. Get off. Brian. Get off. Come on, I gotta. Get off, Dan. Hello?
we hate that guy today.
Top of the morning, officer.
Hi.
Is there something I can help you with?
What the hell are you driving here?
We had a small fire last night, but we caught it in the nick of time.
You have any idea how fast you were going?
Funnily enough, I was just talking to my friend about that. Our speedometer's melted, and as a result, it's very hard to say with any degree of accuracy exactly how fast we were going.
78 miles an hour.
78, huh? Well, yeah, I could buy that, sure, I guess. You would know better than us, especially since we got a melted speedometer.
Do you feel this vehicle is safe for highway travel?
Yes, I do. Yes, I really do. I believe that. I know it's not pretty to look at, but it'll get you where you want to go.
Now, you got no outside mirror.
No, we lost that.
You have no functioning gauges.
No, not a one. However, the radio still works. Funny as that may seem, with all this mess, that the radio is the only thing that's really working good, and it's as clear as a bell. Don't ask me how.
Girl, oh girl, you're looking so fine tonight, girl. And I told you I'd make love to you all night long.
All night long.
But girl, oh girl,
ooh, girl,
let's try to be realistic, girl. Nobody really makes love all night long.
that's impossible.
Though that would be impressive, girl, it's a little bit excessive, girl.
Too much.
And it would probably get uncomfortable to be that sexual.
Chafing.
And don't forget that we have work tomorrow.
8 a.m.
So we should really make sure we get some sleep. But girl, I'll make love to you the best I can. But it's not gonna last real long.
Honesty.
Well, I apologize in advance. I can probably give you 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
If you don't move around too much. Otherwise, I'll probably give you 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
'Cause when you move, I get excited, girl. And hey, is it cool if I leave my shirt on, girl? 'Cause I just had a big dinner.
Boston Market.
And I'm struggling with some negative body issues. Girl, I would love nothing more than to make sweet honey dip love to you till the break of dawn. But unfortunately, sex is something that I'm just not very good at. So please, girl, just try not to laugh at me, no matter how awkward this gets. Girl, let's talk sexual positions, girl. I hope you like the missionary.
Tried and true.
'Cause that's the only one that I'm really comfortable with. And girl, Just one more quick little thing, girl. Please feel free to fake an orgasm.
I won't know.
'Cause that'll make me feel like I'm doing well. Oh, girl.
This is JC Sunday Showgram on 101.9, 94.1, and the News Talk STL app. Don't forget, all parts of the show turn into a podcast that you can download and listen to every Monday just by downloading the News Talk STL free app. It's always a pretty good idea to do. Take us wherever you go, whether it's on Saturday night for JC's Wayback Machine or Sunday morning for this thing we call the Sunday Showgram. Before we get going, I want to tackle something. I'm going to address something right off the top. You know, it was sort of a joke back in the 90s when people started calling me Twister Boy, and there was some truth to me earning that nickname. I've always been into weather. When I was a little boy, I'm talking 6 years old, I wrote a letter to I grew up in Chicago, and on Channel 2 in Chicago, this guy named PJ Hoff, and he used to, in addition to doing the weather, he used to have fishing line that he would run behind the weather map, and then he would draw characters. And while you were watching the weather map, he would pull on the string and the little characters would move. That was considered like incredible technology at that time. I'll tell you something else about that, and this is just a little aside, something you would never know if you weren't hanging around a television station in, like 1961 when everything was still black and white. But here's the deal. You could write to this weather guy, and he would send you a used weather map. I guess they figure, well, what are we going to do with it? We're just going to crunch them up and throw them in the trash. Anyhow, they were made of paper, and you could mail away, and he would send you a weather map. And when the weather map showed up on your doorstep, the color of the paper was bright orange. And I remember, even as a kid, thinking to myself, why would the paper be orange? That doesn't make any sense. Out of all the colors that you could use, why orange? And it was explained to me that back in the days of black and white TV, there were shades of black and white, as we all know there are. You can get something that is black as night, and then you can pull back on the black until it gets lighter and lighter and lighter, and pretty soon you're really dealing with gray shades. And what happened was they figured out that against the color of a white man's skin, white paper, a weather map made out of white paper, the face and the weather map just sort of blended together. And somebody was experimenting a little bit and saying, well, this is black and white. Nobody's going to know it's orange anyhow. We're living in a black and white world. We'll use orange weather maps, and the weather guy his face will stand out against the orange background better. It won't look orange on TV because everybody just has black and white. And of course, they had to change that with the advent of color TV. But one of those little tidbits of information you would not know unless you were paying attention to my semi-psychotic ramblings here every Sunday morning. But I mentioned the weather guys because I'm just no good at math. I'm not good at science, particularly. I'm very interested in science. I give a rat's ass about math. I just steer away from anything that involves math. Somebody a long time ago told me one of the ways of appearing smart is knowing what you're dumb at. And I am really, really dumb when it comes to anything involving numbers. So I just stay away from all of that. Unfortunately, my dreams of becoming a television meteorologist were dashed because of that, because you got to know math and you got to know science, and I'm just not any good at either one of them. Well, now everybody who does weather on TV has to be a meteorologist. But back in the day, you go back 30 years, and there were just local television personalities who were just a guy like Jim Bolin. Those of you who were around, Jim died, I think, in the 90s. But Jim was around, and in the early days of television, they're like, you're the new weather guy. Just like they would come to you and say, you're the new TV clown, or you're the new host of our Dialing for Dollars show in the afternoon. Or, as was the case in radio, with that guy, that Ron Else, who has been lying for 70 years about this. about him being the Johnny Rabbit guy on the radio on KXOK. There was a guy with a long named Don Petramonico, I believe it was, and he was the guy who was Johnny Rabbit. And he did really well, and so he started getting job offers from all over the country, and he left. And one day they went to Ron Ellis and they go, starting tomorrow night, you're the new Johnny Rabbit. And he just continued with it. He wasn't Johnny Rabbit. It was a Johnny Rabbit imposter. And he still walks around. He's like 90 years old. He still walks around with that stupid freaking derby with the ears coming out of it or top hat or whatever it is. The man is living a lie. And he's been living a lie. I think I said 70 years he's been lying. It's probably 60. But that's still a long time to be lying. 6 decades? I guess. You know, in the world of comedy and entertainment, it is a huge, huge no-no to steal. I was having a conversation with Billy Crystal once, and he said that he was on the phone with a guy from Pittsburgh who had stolen some of his jokes and part of his act and was doing it at some comedy club in Pittsburgh, and Billy found out about it and called the guy and just said, you know, I will make life miserable for you. And I will make sure that you never get another gig in comedy for the rest of your life if you don't stop it immediately. People, you know, it's serious business. You don't steal people's stuff. Unless, of course, you're Casey and you steal Party Town from yours truly. And that wasn't the only thing they stole from me, but that's maybe for another day and another show. But my point is, you just don't steal. And Johnny Rabbit has been, like I said, living a lie for the last 6 decades. But anyhow, I've always been interested in weather. Always been interested in weather. When I worked at Channel 5, I probably spend more time hanging around with Bob Richards back in the Weather Center. Same thing at Channel 4. I'd go hang out with Kent Earhart or Dave Murray when I was at Channel 2. But if you go back to 1981, it's sort of a cool story because I was working at a radio station, Johnny Carson's old station, WOW in Omaha, Nebraska. This was like 80, 81. And I became friends with, wouldn't you know it, the local weather guy who was on the NBC affiliate. His name was Dr. Dave Iser. And I can't ever remember being in a city where there was a more popular weatherman than Dr. Dave. It would be like walking around St. Louis right now if you were a combination of Ozzie Smith and John Hamm. You know, you wouldn't be able to walk 10 feet without somebody wanting to get a selfie, somebody wanting to tell you their life story, somebody just wanting to hang out with you. And I became friends with this Dr. Dave guy. And through the course of our conversations, you know, he picked up on the fact that I was really seriously into weather and really wanted to be a weatherman, but, you know, wasn't in the cards. But like I said, now you got to be a meteorologist if you're going to be a weather person on TV. Back, you go 30, 35, 40 years ago, that was not the case. Like I said, you know, they would just grab somebody and say, starting next week, you're doing the weather. I don't know anything about weather. Well, learn something because you're going on Monday. That's really the way things went. And he comes to me and he says, I think that I could put a good word in for you, and I think you could probably get the weekend weather spot here. So I had one suit. Actually, it wasn't even a suit. It was a corduroy sports jacket, and I don't even remember what the pants probably didn't even match. And I put that on, and I went down to the TV station for an audition. I did the audition. I came off the set, and he was waiting for me, and he said, that's it. You got it. You nailed it. You're really, really good at this. You sounded like you knew what you were talking about. And you have no formal weather training of any kind. And I said, no, it's just been a hobby for a long time. So he's like, okay, well, you'll get this weekend weather gig. So now I'm really excited. And my immediate thought is, where the hell am I going to get money to buy a new suit? I can't go on television looking like this. But I was like mentally preparing myself for the gig. Well, I told you that Dr. Dave was very popular. Well, the word got around, and he started getting job offers all over the place. And eventually they came to him from Chicago, WLS-TV, which was the ABC affiliate, and said, we got a gig for you here. We want to move you to Chicago. We're going to pay you all this money, blah, blah, blah. He accepts the gig. So now not only am I losing my best friend in Omaha at that time, but I say to him, is this going to impact the possibility here that maybe you're making? It sounds like I got the weekend weather gig. Is it going to affect that at all? I don't see why it would. Like, oh, okay. Well, to make a very long story short, if it is possible at this point, The TV station decides, no, what we're going to do, we're going to consolidate. Since Dave is going to Chicago, we're going to take this person who is part-time. We're going to make him full-time. We're going to take this person who's part-time, make him full-time. We're going to move this woman over here. And then this woman who's working the midday news show doing weather, we're going to move her into the weekend slot. And my part-time weekend weather gig evaporated in thin air. My dream just dissipated and went away. They reorganized everything, and the gig that I thought I had, well, the gig didn't even exist anymore because they eliminated it. That was the closest I got to being on TV on a regular basis back then, and I figured that was it. That was it. You know, I blew it. That's my best shot. I didn't really do anything wrong, but you know, there it is. You get that close to your dream. Like Moonlight Graham, I came that close, and the gig went away. But there's a huge problem, especially in St. Louis, and this is what I really wanted to talk about, because there was a guy who wrote it was actually a post by John Fuller, who's been on television doing weather for 1,000,000 years. And John was doing his best to sort of map out what this weekend snow situation was going to be. This was on Thanksgiving Day. He says, I think, we're going to get 2 to 4. We're going to get this. This may have to be massaged a little bit. We're not really sure. We're still a couple of days out, but here's what it's looking like right now. And a guy just wrote in the comments, the meanest, snottiest, creepiest, disrespectful slap into the face to anybody who's ever done weather. Oh, I wish I could get paid all that money and always be wrong. That kind of crap. And I took his head off because he deserves it. And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, people want weather to be an exact science. It's not. I don't know anything about chemistry, but if I did, I could probably say, well, yeah, if you pour some of this with some of this, you're going to have a test tube that explodes because the two potions, if you will, don't get along. And if they're mixed together, they go boom, they go up in smoke. We all know that. All the scientists know it, not to mix these two things together. That's the way people want weather to be. They want weather to be a world of absolutes, and it's not. There's constant variables, and it's especially complicated by the fact that where we live in the country is right on the dividing line. I don't have to tell you this. If you lived in St. Louis any appreciable amount of time, you know that we're right on the dividing line all the time because these storms come spinning out of the Pacific Northwest, and then they swoop down, and then they come up through Arizona. They come right up 44 right at us, and depending on what the rain-snow dividing line is, you can be in Festus and get not so much as a drop, and you could be in St. Charles, and you could be up to, as my father would say, up to your Zorch in snow with 10 inches. So it is especially difficult in this part of the country to predict weather, especially snow. We just don't have the technology to be able to do so. It's like it's not as bad as trying to predict. Well, let me back up. Okay, years ago, and I'm only talking maybe 20 years ago, it was pretty impossible to chart the path of a hurricane. We just didn't have the data. We didn't have the science behind it. And over the course of the last 20 years, they figured out how to get much better at it. And so now the National Weather Service and everybody who's involved in predicting these kinds of things, they're a lot more accurate with the path of hurricanes, okay? And maybe someday the weather guys will be able to predict hurricanes right down to what county it's going to hit. But we're so much better at it now than we were. We can't predict earthquakes, but I'll bet you someday we will be able to. We just don't have the science yet. We don't have the data. Well, it's the same thing with a day-to-day weather forecast, particularly when you're talking about snow, and particularly when you're talking about snow in this part of the country. You want it to be an exact science. I would like it to be too. So would the weather guys. But it's just not possible yet. We don't have the science. So it's always these people on the freaking internet and on Facebook. I swear to God, it's like taking an empty tin can, putting a rock in the can, and then just like shaking it. That's what these comments sound like. Just idiots, imbeciles who don't know anything but have tons of opinions and want to just share those opinions with all of us. And we so appreciate it. I promise you, it's not a case of the weather guys all being lousy at their jobs. It's just like saying, oh, I'm a fan of the Dallas Cowboys. I want them to win every week. Why can't you win every week? You suck at your job because you can't, as head coach, steer the Dallas Cowboys to a win every week. There's too many variables, and we don't have what I guess you would call the science, if you can imagine putting together a game plan as a loose form of science. The long and the short of it is, it just isn't possible at this stage of the game. So next time you're like, yeah, you're right. Those weather guys, yeah, they all suck. I'm telling you, they're better than you think. And if you don't believe me, here's what you do. Sit with a pad of paper and a pencil for a month. And every night on the 6 or the 10 o'clock news, wait for the weather guy to come on, write down what they said the weather forecast is going to be for the next 2 days, and then chart whether or not they were right or they were wrong. You know what you're going to find? And I know the answer to this because it's been done a million times, okay? The research has been done. The data is there. And you'll find out that they're right a little bit over 80% of the time, which is pretty good when you start talking about things like, clouds and vapor and Mother Nature and all that sort of stuff. You get it right 80% of the time, I think you're kicking ass. So just keep that in the back of your head. The next time you hear somebody just rattling off nonsense about what they think the accuracy level of your local weather meteorologist should be. All right, I don't know about you, but I feel better now. I just screwed up the entire show. We're supposed to start the show with a weekend pickup. We'll come back and do that. All right, it is time for the weekend pickup. This is normally how we start the show, but I got in my weather rant there. A collection of semi-psychotic, very, very unusual, and totally meaningless stories that perhaps flew under your radar over the last couple of days. Just look at what I do for you. The Naked Gun tops a list of 100 best comedy movies of all time. It doesn't say who put the list together, which doesn't surprise me because some of these things are really stupid. They have Superbad listed as the 20th funniest movie ever made. It Happened One Night from 1934. Spinal Tap. Heartbreak Kid at number 17. That's the original, by the way, and I would concur with that. And the remake that Ben Stiller made, you should be ashamed to show his face in public. His Girl Friday, 1940 at number 16. Playtime at number 15. Sideways at number 14, which I never really viewed as a comedy. Dr. Strangelove at 13. Tootsie at 12. Pretty funny movie. Sherlock Jr. from 1924 at number 11. Groundhog Day at 10. Young Frankenstein. Fargo. Duck Soup. Monty Python and the Holy Grail at 6. Waiting for Guffman at 5. The Great Dictator at number 4. Annie Hall 3. Some Like It Hot, 1959. And number 1, The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad. Hilary Duff. What is it about this girl? She's like, 5'1", maybe, if that, and she's built solid. There's a lot of girls who are 5'1", and they're petite. Hilary Duff is a little tank, if you want to know something, and she hasn't done any work that I can remember being very excited about yet. When I see pictures of her, if I find out she's going to be on TV, what is it about her that makes me want to watch? Anyhow, she's back to singing now, and she has a new song called Mature, and she will not confirm nor deny that the song is about Leonardo DiCaprio, who I guess, what are they saying, that at some point he tapped that? I never heard that story. When she was, I believe, 16 years old, she appeared on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and I saved this because I'm a filthy old man. So again, this is like a 16-year-old little girl. Am I ashamed of myself? Of course I am. But I'm going to play this for you anyhow.
Now, what kind of cars do you like? Do you like it? You seem like the little Honda type.
Basically, anything that has 4 wheels, but I'm obsessed with Hummers.
Oh, the big Humvee?
For sure. Could you imagine me? I'm like 5'1".
It's nice to know that there's like 350 people there in the Tonight Show studio that also should feel ashamed of themselves. Can you imagine me? I'm just 5 foot. Yes, we can. We can. Hillary, Can you imagine the conversation that took place when she came off the set and her manager grabbed her and said, come here. Man in West Virginia recovering at the hospital after being shot on the head while fighting over a gun with another man as they were shooting rats from a second-story window. That might be the most West Virginia news story I've ever seen in my life. Woman had to be rushed to urgent care after getting a paper cut. It got infected and got real nasty. A paper cut. If maybe this has something to do with the post-pandemic era, but if you're feeling burnt out, you got good company. 55% of the U.S. workforce says that they are experiencing burnout. I'm not really sure what the difference between a stray cat and a feral cat is. Maybe there isn't any real difference, but being a 100% cat lover, I have mixed emotions about this. The country of New Zealand, they're trying to get rid of feral cats, and they say they're going to be able to do it by the year 2050. An executive at Campbell's Soup was caught on secret recording slamming the company's product and belittling the people who buy it. He basically said that their product, Campbell's Soup, is crap, and the people who eat it are stupid. We did a story about West Virginia. How about Virginia? It took 15 days and 2 separate tow trucks before anybody noticed a dead man in the back seat of a car. Welcome to Virginia. Now police are finally investigating his death. Gosh, you think? As I'm sure you know, the Trump administration has set up a deadline for Ukraine to respond to its 28-point plan. The only problem is that 27 of the points go to Russia. Remember back in the, was it 80s? I guess it was 80s and probably 90s too. The ShamWow guy, I believe his name was Vince, and people went out and ran out and bought all these ShamWows, and it's like a towel. Doesn't have any special properties or powers. Although I will say I was at the hardware store about a month ago, and I bought one of those blankets to throw over a grease fire. Oh, good. We'll store this right under the stove. No, because if the stove's on fire, you don't want to have to battle the flame without your special top. Never mind. God, look at these birthdays. I'm gonna have to break this up into parts. Jenna and Barbara Bush, the Bush twins, are 44. Christina Applegate, she's having a very, very bad time. It's a shame she's got to go through what she's going through with the MS. 54. John Larroquette from Night Court and also Stripes, 78. Ben Stein, Bueller, former speechwriter for Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford, 81. Coming up tomorrow, which is Cyber Monday, AMC is selling an AMC popcorn pass that provides half off a large popcorn every day of the week, plus 1 free refill per day. It's priced at $29.99 per year. I have to tell you, I used to sell popcorn at the Colony Theater, 59th and Kedzie on the south side of Chicago, and I did that for almost 2 years. And I was in high school, and after that, you'd be in a dorm at college or something. Hey, we're getting popcorn. You want some? No. I don't think I ate popcorn for 15 years after that because I got so tired of the smell of popcorn. We had to cook it too. It's not like it showed up in big bags the way it does now. We had to pour the corn kernels into the machine and then put the grease in there and then it would start to pop and then it would start to overflow. And when it starts to overflow, you lunge for it too, because if you've ever burnt popcorn, it takes about 2 months to get the smell out of your house. You might recall that last week I was complaining about the fact that there was another country music award show on television last week. And it's like, there's a new one on, there's once a month. They have all these different divisions and categories, and you turn on the TV and it's another country music show. Well, maybe I'm not the only one getting tired of it, because last year the show did 16 million viewers, and this past week it did 6 million. Good. Music stinks anyhow. I always like the day after Thanksgiving because I like to go through the newspapers and the wire services and read all the stories about the guys who tried to deep fry a turkey without having any idea what they were doing. They ended up burning their house down and melting the siding off of their neighbor's house. Guy Fieri ripped a quad muscle in half and has to use a wheelchair for the next 8 weeks. And he was on television earlier this week talking about his adventures with deep frying a turkey.
And just like every video that you see on TikTok, it is a fireball of flames, and the turkey's in it. And all of a sudden, the whole thing falls over, and the turkey shoots out of the pot. So now I've got what looks like the burnout scene from Back to the Future when he took off in the DeLorean. And the turkey slides across the lawn and hits the fence.
It reminds me of a story that the U-Man told me once about. They were having some big family gathering outside on the 4th of July, and somebody brought some pretty serious fireworks, and they started lighting them off, and one of the little stands turned over on its side and started shooting pretty powerful fireworks horizontally. And John's uncle, who had been in the war, yelled to everybody, "Hit the deck!" I don't understand this controversy about Ozempic. I'm on it because you can't pick your parents. And I made it to this ripe old age without the type 2 diabetes. And finally, I went to the doctor about a year ago, and he's like, "Yep, you got it. You can't pick your parents." So they needed to bring down my A1C. And just like that fat lady who likes to dance around in the village square singing about how great it is, they gave it to me. And so once a month, I give myself the jab. I'm sorry, once a week, I give myself the jab. And I lost about 18 pounds, and it brought my A1C down. What I don't understand is this. The world, it seems, has been waiting since, I don't know, 100 years for some sort of drug to be invented by science that would help you lose weight. And now it's here, but if you use it, there's people who will try to embarrass you about it. Why? This is what everybody's been waiting for. They probably can't afford it, that's why. And now you got people talking about something called Ozempic penis. Ozempic penis. But I'll tell you this, those of you old enough to remember this guy, Jack LaLanne, he was the first guy back in the old black and white TV days, back in the 50s, who went on during the middle of the day and showed basically how to do isometrics. He didn't use any exercise equipment, and they had somebody playing a piano, and he would, get up, you fat ladies, and try to get him to move around a little bit and do exercises, and you would just use household items, and you didn't need barbells or anything like that. Use 2 giant cans of soup. Just using a regular wooden chair. There were things that you could do. And he always used to say, try to the guys, date women who have small hands because it makes your thing look bigger. And he also said to the guys, try to get a flat stomach because you've got a flat stomach. Your thing will look bigger. See, that's really it, ladies. It's all about making our things bigger. But if you lose a lot of weight and your stomach is more flat, just because of perspective, your thing's going to look bigger. Thus, Ozempic penis. Reader's Digest talked to an expert who said using plastic wrap for Thanksgiving leftovers is better than aluminum foil. If your leftovers are still warm and you put them in the fridge, foil will keep them warm a little longer, and it also helps bacteria grow. That ain't any good. And when you look at a turkey on a farm somewhere, the thing is completely covered with feathers, and somebody's got to take those feathers out. I'm sure they got machines that do it. But a wild turkey, an adult wild turkey, has approximately 5,000 to 6,000 feathers. Kevin Costner is in talks to play Bill Clinton in a new series about the United Nations. I love turkey sandwiches. Maybe you don't. Maybe the only way you like turkey is roasted and then with gravy on top. For you, I have good news. Home-style turkey gravy. It's called leftover gravy. Specifically for, after Thanksgiving. It's being sold exclusively at Walmart.com. I wish they would do this in this country. In the UK, reselling concert and event tickets for profit will be outlawed as part of a new government crackdown on resale platforms like StubHub. Whether you're doing a good job or a bad job doesn't even seem to matter anymore, particularly if you're in government. J.D. Vance just trying to maneuver through the Trump presidency and set himself up for a presidential run in 3 years. 67-year-old man in Michigan has been sentenced to 2 years in prison for threatening the life of Vice President J.D. Vance. I forgot to tell you his name. The 67-year-old guy in Michigan, his name is J.D. Vance. Back in the heyday of Brett Hull, primarily in the 1990s, Brett had a couple of restaurants, and then he set up his brother Blake with a restaurant that was over near Olive and 141, if my memory serves me correctly. And we went in every once in a while. I was pretty good friends with Brett at the time, and so we wanted to support him and his family members. And so we went in there, and we're having a nice meal on a Saturday night, and it was not a sports bar. It was an actual restaurant, okay? And I ordered a Caesar salad, and I'm enjoying my Caesar salad, and the place is packed, and I'm chewing away. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, no. And I thought that I had lost a filling because you can feel this thing rolling around in your mouth, and you're like, oh, crap. And I finally spit the thing out in my hand, and it was a giant screw. Well, I shouldn't say giant, but, anything that's in your mouth that's foreign like that is going to feel pretty big. So to me, it was a giant screw. In reality, it wasn't that big. But it's not like my doctor said, JC, you're not getting enough metal in your diet. So I spit the thing out, and I didn't want to make a big scene because I didn't want to unnecessarily panic people. But I called Blake over, and I said, is there someplace we can go? He's like, yeah, why? Just take me somewhere. So he took me into the kitchen, and I held out my hand, and I said, this was in my salad. I almost chipped a tooth on it. I almost swallowed it. What's the story? How on earth would a screw get into a salad? And it took us a couple of minutes, and we were just sort of standing there looking at each other, and finally said, wait a minute, come here. And he took me over into the area where they prepare salads, and he said, look at this thing. And it was, you probably have one at your house, a salad spinner. You clean the salad, but now you got wet lettuce, and using centrifugal force, you run this thing, and it spins the salad around, and it takes all the moisture off the salad, and you have lettuce that isn't, dripping wet. And in a restaurant, those salad spinners are huge, and they're made of metal. And so we were looking around at the thing, and it's like, sure enough, there was a screw missing, I guess, from the constant vibration of this thing spinning around with the centrifugal force. A screw can become loose, and it can find its way into your salad. I mention this because there's a politician in Ohio who is speaking out because he claims he found a screw in his Chipotle meal. He cracked a tooth and had to go to the dentist. And let's get to the remainder of the birthdays for this weekend. Adam Driver is 42. Jodie Foster, 63. She is a tiny thing. Man, when we would do these interviews out in California, people would always be sitting. So you couldn't even really tell how tall they were or whether they were big or small or whatever because they were sitting in a chair. You can't tell until somebody gets up. She happened to get up after my interview and go walking down the hall, and I was walking behind her, and I couldn't believe how tiny she was. She's 63 this weekend. Meg Ryan, 64. I interviewed her too. Allison Janney, 66. And we thought it was going to change the world when Amazon, on this date back in 2007, introduced the Kindle. Be honest with you, I don't even know if they still have those. And it seemed like a really, really good idea at the time. Unfortunately, they didn't really set the world on fire. And I think one of the problems was a lot of people like to read outside. You're sitting on the beach, you're sitting by the pool or whatever. It's not like you're Ward Cleaver and you're going to read, so you go into the den. People just sort of, read wherever they can read, wherever they're comfortable. And a lot of times that's in the sun. And a computer screen, even on a Kindle, doesn't really show up very well. And it was 16 years ago this weekend, back in 2009, The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock, Tim McGraw, Lily Collins came out. Another one of those sports movies that, just like Rudy, where you find out at the end, when you talk to the people who were really around in the real situation on which the movie is based, you find out that, none of that really happened. Hollywood, show business. Somebody had to write an exciting script, and this is what came out. Because even the kid who played Michael Oher, O-H-E-R, even he said, most of that stuff never happened. Hollywood. All right, that's it. That's the weekend pickup. That's how we start the show, or how we're supposed to start the show, unless I get sloppy with putting the whole thing together like I did today. I've said this before. I'll say it again. One of the things I really miss about doing this show is elements from the old show. And one of the most popular things we used to do was very simple. I would see those phone lines flashing. We had 5 incoming lines back on the old Breakfast Club show and the morning showgram. And I noticed out of the corner of my eye, what did we do? What did we say? Every phone line into this radio station right now is flashing. What's going on? I would start pushing buttons down, and we didn't use call screeners. We're the only radio station in America that did not screen calls. Because the way it used to work is you would call a radio station and want to say something, and there would be some guy in a booth separate from the studio who would say, "Hi, what's your name, where you're calling from, and what is it that you want to talk about?" And then you would tell the call screener, the producer sometimes, you would say, that thing that guy said on the air just now, he's full of crap and I want to argue with him about it. They'd say, okay, we'll put you on hold, and your chance to talk on the radio with the host will come up here in just a moment. Hold on. And you would sit there and you would wait. I always thought that took the immediacy away from the whole thing. Was it a little on the dangerous side? Sure. Somebody might say something that would embarrass somebody, or somebody might want to take your head off or something like that. But I always felt that the opportunity to improvise was one of our strong suits on that old show. And I saw it as a challenge. I saw that as the most fun part of the show because you didn't know what was going to happen. Most radio show hosts are terrified when they realize something could happen that hasn't been prepared. We used to thrive on that idea. That was the most fun part of the whole show. We didn't know what was coming, and it gave us an opportunity to give you a true and honest reaction. And if our show back in those days sounded different from everything else that was on the air, that was one of the big reasons why. Well, don't ask me how or why, but one morning we got into Confucius jokes. If you have forgotten what those were from middle school, you'll hear a lot of them that you probably forgot.
Radio? Who needs a radio?
Like what you're hearing? Don't forget JC's Wayback Machine every Saturday night from 6 until 9 on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL and the free News Talk STL app.
As I was saying last break, one of the most enjoyable parts of doing the old show for me was the uncertainty of what would happen when I would push down that button for a phone call and your voice would go out on the air live just as a caller. We had no idea who you were. We had no idea where you were calling from. We didn't know anything other than you had something to say and we wanted to hear it. Like I said, one morning we returned to middle school where Confucius became the topic of a serious discussion, at least initially, which veered, shall we say, off course.
One of the things we always do is we tell you who's having a birthday, all the celebrities that are having birthdays. And this one particularly caught my eye. I hate to sort of, telegraph what we're doing here, but today would have been Confucius's birthday. Confucius was born in 551 BC, lived till 479 BC. That must have been hard doing birthdays when the numbers went the wrong way.
Yeah.
That when you went into descending order instead of ascending order.
Maybe you were born at age 40, like Mork from Ork.
Yeah, it would be a compliment to go, man, you look great. You don't look a day over 90. That kind of stuff. It would be, you're going the wrong direction. So in any event, but it reminded me, John, how many of these Confucius things, because Confucius said, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. But then remember in grade school, you had all those Confucius things?
Yes.
I only remember 2. I remember, and the thing is, the phone lines are going to light up here. I know they are.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of these? Was it the same for girls, too? Did you hear all those Confucius things?
Not really.
I think it was a guy thing.
Yeah.
Think so?
I think so.
I thought it was pretty much across the board. But
Okay, which ones do you remember?
I don't remember any.
Oh, come on.
Confucius say,
Confucius say, man who have hole in pocket feel cocky all day.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's a boy thing.
I'm
right
clearing
there.
the lines right now. 969-9696, 1-866-455-9699. I don't want to know about the plane. I just remember I want to know if you remember any of these Confucius things.
And this was when you were in school.
Oh, yeah,
like
grade school. Confucius say, man have hole in pocket feel cocky all day. I remember Confucius say, A woman who fly upside down an airplane have crack up.
Yeah. I remember that one.
I'm telling you. Okay, it's high.
Hey, Confucius say, man who fart in church, sit in own pew.
Yeah. That's an old one, yeah.
Okay, it's high. Yeah.
Confucius say, man who stands on toilet is high on pot.
Okay, it's high.
Confucius say, better to be pissed off than pissed on.
Yeah, he's a genius.
I would agree with that.
Hi. Hello.
Confucius say, man with hot rod burn rubber.
Oh, no.
Hi.
Confucius say, he who go to bed with itchy butt, wake up with smelly finger.
Oh, God.
Hi.
Confucius say, okay to meet girl in park, but not to park meet and girl.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. Confucius was a horny dude.
Okay, it's high.
Confucius say, woman who ride bike, pedal ass around town.
Hi.
Confucius say, a man who go to bed with stiff problem, wake up with solution in hand.
Oh, no. Confucius was a pervert.
Okay, it's high.
Confucius say, short woman who dance with tall men, come away cockeyed.
Oh, my gosh.
Hello.
Confucius say, who walk sideways through airports to turnstile, go to Bangkok.
Wow.
Yes, Confucius say, man who lose key to girl's apartment, get no new key.
Okay, it's... Yeah. Hello.
Man who live in glass house, better dress in basement.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Hi.
Confucius say, woman who dye hair blind, have black hair by cracky.
Oh, my God.
Okay, it's...
Confucius say, man who eat jelly beans fart inside the...
Can't even do it. He's laughing
Try it again. Try it again.
Man who eat jelly bean.
Man who eats jelly beans farts in Technicolor.
Gross.
We're starting
He's
to
ready
scrape,
to cry.
scrape the bottom of the barrel
heck
here.
No, we're still doing good.
Hello.
We still got some fart jokes left.
Confucius say, just when you build something idiot-proof, somebody builds a better idiot.
I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that?
JC recently threw out the first pick.
25 years in St. Louis.
25 years.
Keep on doing those opening day shows.
P.S. The Mets are pond scum.
How about that sign up there? JC says the Mets are pond scum.
And some 50,000 reacting.
But why pond scum?
Thank God you came along when you did, because it took Casey to a different level.
Hi, Paul. We've heard stories about how the Beatles really looked up to Elvis Presley.
Yeah, I was in love with Elvis.
J.C. Corcoran high above the Riverport Amphitheater on opening night.
J.C. Corcoran is no longer employed at KMOX.
You're sitting next to J.C. rock disc jockey, St. Louis, Missouri, and I think he thinks you're way off base.
We are currently sitting in the basement of Mike Bush. The words we've been longing for. Here we are with Madonna. You must have people lining up 24 hours a day to kind of kiss your ass.
No.
And here we are with Oprah.
Oh, for sure, JC.
Another pitch from Corcoran to Hundley. Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
Good morning, St. Louis. Good afternoon, Moscow time. Это американская радиостанция Макдональдс.
We are ready whenever you are.
Doesn't it look like I am ready? I am always ready.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Surprised you never listened, Joe. 2 or 3 other talk shows around, but for my money, he's the best.
Why, does he get results?
Well, no, he doesn't do anything except talk.
Get off, Brian. Just get off. Brian, I need the phone. Get off. Brian, get off. Come on, I gotta get off, Dan.
Bob Costas. JC has a fine program, and he really has become a very good radio man.
Now, therefore, I, Francis G. Slay, do hereby proclaim May 15th as J.C. Corcoran Day in the city of St. Louis.
May I now present a cultured, sophisticated man about town.
Get off it.
In a world where there are accusations of a war on Christmas, but somehow right after the 4th of July, Costco has Christmas decorations up, well, I think you know what I'm getting at. Loudon Wainwright III right there. I love that. I love it. I love it. This is hour number 2 of JC's Sunday Showgram on 101.9, 94.1, and the News Talk STL app. Where do you want to start? How about the Sharon Stone story? All right, so I was doing an interview with Steven Seagal once, and this is when he first came out. This was people were still mispronouncing his name. Steven Seagal. Now it's Seagal. And he had done his first one or two movies, and people were just starting to go, oh, my God, this guy's going to be a superstar. And for whatever reason, this guy liked me. And they brought him to St. Louis on St. Patrick's Day of 1988. I still remember the date because we were doing a live show for St. Patrick's Day, and he came over there, and then he came down to the TV station in the afternoon, and we did an interview there. And we were laughing and having a good old time, and he said the most amazing thing to me. He said, if you lived in L.A., you and I would hang out. And I thought to myself, no, we wouldn't, but I'll take it as a compliment. Like I said, for whatever reason, this guy liked me. And in one of his first movies, his co-star was Sharon Stone. And Seagal, especially at that point in his life, was a little short on social graces. He had no filter, and if you asked him a question, he would tell you exactly what he thought, not worrying about what repercussions may follow. And I said, well, what was it like working with Sharon Stone? And he called her the C word. I was like, okay, no further questions, Your Honor. Your witness, please. And I'd heard that from other places, too, that she was difficult to work with. And decent actress, easy on the eyes. And she went through a couple of husbands early on in life and ended up with some guy who was a newspaper publisher. Yeah, real good-looking guy, wavy black hair, tall, the whole thing. Well, she's Sharon Stone. She can get whoever she wants, probably. All right. So she figures, okay, I got a new husband. This is going to be the first birthday that I'm going to be celebrating with him, and I want it to be special. And somewhere along the line in conversation, apparently he tells her how he's just crazy about Komodo dragons. Now, do you know what a Komodo dragon is? If you don't, you probably have to look it up, Google it or something. But if you saw the movie The Freshman, Matthew Broderick was running around the entire movie. Well, they say it's like a small alligator or something, but they're, I guess, reasonably domesticated. I don't think they attack for no reason. I mean, any animal will defend itself if it is feeling like it's being attacked or it's in danger. But, if you don't do that, it's like a dog. It's just going to sort of walk around and it eats white mice, which is funny in itself because it's like, you're a Komodo dragon. And it's like, here's a rat. No, I only eat white mice. Oh, excuse me. Let me talk to the chef. So she figures, hey, I'll pull some strings. I'm a big shot in Hollywood. Let me go talk to somebody at the zoo or some sort of animal place where they have Komodo dragons, and I'll explain the situation. I'll throw them a couple of bucks. I'll make a donation to the zoo, and they'll let me bring my husband back behind the enclosure, complete surprise, and he will show up, and we'll put him like in one of those big glass rooms, and we'll let the Komodo dragon loose, and he can pet it and play with it and all that. And what a great birthday surprise, right? Okay, fine, no problem. And I guess they have like wood shavings or something on the floor of this. It's not really a cage. You think of a cage as being metal. This is like one of those glass rooms, okay, like they have at zoos. So sure enough, Sharon Stone says, we're going to the zoo for your birthday. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Where are we going? Well, I'm going to take you back here. What are we doing? I don't get it. So he sits down and they bring out the Komodo dragon, and the Komodo dragon starts, lumbering towards Sharon Stone's new husband. There's one problem. Apparently Komodo dragons, like a lot of animals like that, have terrible vision. They can't see for nothing. And as I already pointed out, they like to eat white mice. Well, the best laid plans. Sharon Stone's husband was wearing a pair of white sneakers, and the Komodo dragon comes running up to Sharon Stone's husband and chomps down on his foot, thinking it's a giant white rat, bites through the shoe, through his skin, through the bone, and the story I heard is that it just severed his big toe. And I think I remember reading somewhere that your big toe is like really, really important for balance, and if you don't have a big toe, I don't know, I guess you just go walking around, you keep falling over or something. But this all happened, by the way, in, I believe it was 1998 or 1999. And sure enough, yep, here it is. Divorced in 2004. I wonder what contributed to the divorce. As long as we're talking about crazy situations, let's move on to our buddy, Big Cy. How do I explain this? But a lot of inmates, I remember this when I first got to Casey in 1984. I started getting letters from all of these guys in prison. And, got some from Chester, got a couple from, it's not Eureka, but it's somewhere out near Eureka. There's a big prison. It's Pacific. That's it. It's Pacific. Because I remember we played a softball game, a charity softball game there once. But anyhow, I guess these guys are, they're stuck in prison. There's nothing to do. They, I guess, let them listen to the radio and, oh, here's a new guy. I'll make contact. And apparently there's some sort of law that if they send a piece of mail out, they have to include all of their prison information, including on the front of the envelope. On the front of the envelope, they have to put their prison number. So the letters were really, really easy to spot back then. I'm like, what is going on? Well, one day we got a letter from the Missouri Home for the Criminally Insane in Fulton, Missouri. And the reason the letter stood out is because it was so funny. Funny in really sort of a sad, tragic way. This guy clearly was paranoid schizophrenic and believed that he had authored many of the current hit songs being played on the radio. He really believed it. He believed that he wrote, well, this was, back in the time of Madonna, Like a Virgin, stuff like that. He said that he wrote that, and he didn't just say it, he believed it. And he had all these nicknames for himself. His name was Cyril Colicotronis. And by the way, we later on, we sort of did a little digging and found out that apparently he had been exposing himself to women. And I guess that's why they picked him up the first couple of times. And then once when he was in court, he followed the female judge into the ladies' room and exposed himself to her there. She was not amused. And I guess that's when they really put him away for a long time. As far as I know, he never really did anything violent. He never killed anybody, never hurt anybody, but he was crackers and had this propensity to want to expose himself. All right? So we always saw him as being pretty harmless. Well, first of all, he's in jail and he's not getting out. So how much harm can he cause? Well, the letters started to come more frequently, and they were all hilarious. I mean, the guy really did have an amazing sense of humor. It's just that he was nuts. And he also fancied himself, like I said, as a songwriter. And sometimes when he would call into the radio station, he would insist on singing a song that he had written. So we let him sing, and we also provided some accompaniment, sang along with him, as you'll hear. I'm going to play that for you first, and then I'm going to play you what happened after that.
I'm going to Las Vegas, dun, 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 dun. There's nothing that can shake us, dun, 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 dun. If employment's getting slow, dun, 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 dun. We can bet to make our dough, dun, 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 dun. You can start with nothing flat, dun, 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 dun. At least you know right where you're at, dun, 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 dun. You in the day on top of the world, dun, 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 dun. And with a true American girl, dun, 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 dun. Las Vegas, Nevada, dun, 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 dun. All lit up in neon, dun, 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 dun. Do you want to gamble, dun, 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 dun. Come on and bet some, dun, 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 dun.
See what I'm saying here? The guy was fascinating, and it wasn't a bad song, to be honest with you. I've never had anybody sing a song to me and also sing the dun, 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 duns, the musical accompaniment on it. But you know what? The guy was nuts, so he didn't care. Well, this went on for quite some time, and Cy would call us once or twice a week. Radio station started getting some blowback. You're making fun of this man, and he's crazy. It's like, yeah, but nobody's getting hurt. If anything, guy's going to be in prison till the day he dies, is getting some jollies out of the whole thing. Not that he understood what was happening. So like I said, nobody was getting hurt. I don't see what the problem was. We just kept on doing it, and we ignored these naysayers. Well, it was a guy who hung around the show, was on occasion supplying us with homemade jingles. and his name was Rich Harper. We used to call him the Jingle Fairy. And we called him the Jingle Fairy because he had a full-time job. And I would get to work sometime, 5:15 in the morning, and there'd just be a little package there with a cassette. And, oh, look, another creation from Rich Harper, the Jingle Fairy, and thus the name. And I would put in the machine, oh, my God, this is great. So after hearing Big Si do his a cappella version of Going to Las Vegas, Rich sat down at his keyboard, his synthesizer, took the recording of Big Si, and the rest, as they say, was history.
I'm going to Las Vegas. There's nothing that can shake us. If employment's getting slow, we can bet to make our dough. You can start with nothing flat. At least you know right where you're at. You in the day on top of the world. And with the true American girl. Las Vegas, Nevada. All lit up in neon. Do you wanna gamble? Come on and bet some. Love me do. Love me do.
I'm telling you, the day we played that back down the phone line to him in Fulton, I thought Si's head was going to explode. Because, again, keep in mind, this guy has himself believing that he's a songwriter, and not just a songwriter, one of the most famous, most prolific songwriters in history of current pop music. And now he hears this coming back down the phone line at him? Can you imagine? Well, years went by. I was off the air for a couple of years, and then I worked in Texas for a while. And then I came back into town in 2016, and when Rich Harper, the Jingle Fairy, found out that I was back in town, he said, you know what? I'm sure this is going to come up in conversation because you like to reminisce about some of that old stuff, and people love hearing these old tapes of these goofy things that used to happen. Let me take the original recording. Let's update it a little bit for the times, okay? Because you're talking about stuff that happened back in the late 80s, and now it's 2016. Let's freshen this damn thing up a little bit.
I'm going to Las Vegas. There's nothing that can shake us. If employment's getting slow, we can bet to make our dough. You can start with nothing flat. At least you know right where you're at. You in the day on top of the world. And with the true American girl. Las Vegas, Nevada. All lit up in neon. Do you wanna gamble? Come on and bet some.
When I hear old stuff like this, sometimes I have to remind myself, you went to college for this. Yeah, I had formal training. Nothing like wasting an education. That's what I always like to say.
For a hole in your head or a whole new head, J.C. Corcoran, he's back.
Because you got all this stuff going on. First of all, it's the beginning of that cuffing season. Remember that? Saturday Night Live did a piece on that with St. Louis native SZA, as a matter of fact, about cuffing season. That means men and women hook up right before Thanksgiving so that you have somebody to spend all of the holidays with. Because you got Thanksgiving, and you got Christmas, and you got New Year's Eve, and what happens after that doesn't really matter because cuffing season is over. But nobody wants to go through the holidays all by themselves. We did our part, I'd say like the whole first 10 years of the new millennium, because we partnered with St. Louis Magazine, and they used to do St. Louis Singles Night. They would put out that big holiday edition where, I don't know, they'd have like 10 or 12 eligible singles, and they would profile them with full-page little bios and pictures and everything like that. And look at this. Look at all these people in St. Louis that are single and just dying to meet you. And it would culminate on the night before Thanksgiving, usually at the Ritz-Carlton, sometimes at the Coruscant Ballroom, at the Chase. Either location, absolutely sensational. But I've always loved the Coruscant Ballroom. But we would have this thing, it would be like 2,000 single people all in one giant hall, and there was music and there were raffles and door prizes and dancing and all this sort of stuff. Everybody was just decked out. It was sort of like in high school. It was like, I remember they would do like a mixer, and you would show up and try to meet somebody. Now, that wasn't necessarily the objective of everybody there, because at least on a couple of occasions in the men's room, there were, how do I say this, activities involving multiple partners. How's that? So while a lot of people showed up going, I would like to meet somebody for cuffing season for the holidays, at least one woman was there just concerned about one night and one night only. But it was just like, a bar or something where the later it got at night, the more desperate people became. The crowd started to thin out. People started to hook up and disappear from the premises. I wish I could remember what comedian I should give the credit to on this, but he said, like dating services. Match.com should actually be called what'sleft.com, because different strokes for different folks. Some people would feel very comfortable using a dating service, and some people, it would be like that would be their last choice of desperation. Some people like, okay, sure, I'll go to a big dance, a big mixer, a big thing with 2,000 singles at the Coruscant Ballroom at the Chase Park Plaza. That's fine for me. For other people, it wouldn't be fine. It's just, depending on what it is you're comfortable with. And I would MC this thing every year. Little did they know that I was on the prowl myself. I never landed anything, by the way. After all, there were only 2,000 women. There were only 2,000 women there. I need a little larger talent pool. The other real big night is coming up in a month, because it's Christmas night at the Ritz-Carlton. That draws a huge crowd. And, that's not sponsored. It's not promoted. It's just word of mouth, but it's been going on there for years, couple of decades, that usually by Christmas, anyhow, people are so tired of people living in their house for the holidays, having to cook and clean and put on a show and everything. And they just basically want to throw down. It's Christmas night. Everything's sort of over. I'm going to the Ritz. Because that's what you want to do, by the way, is after you've spent your last dollar on earth buying presents for Christmas for everybody, you want to go to the Ritz-Carlton, where everything is reasonably priced. And it's a very different clientele there, because it's not exactly like going to Helen Fitzgerald's. If you're going to the Ritz, you're making a statement about yourself, because especially for the women, they're like, I'm dressing in the finest clothes I have. I've got the hair and the makeup going. I am dressed to kill, and now I'm not going to go to some restaurant bar. I'm going to the frickin' Ritz. I'm going to meet somebody. I'm going to meet somebody with money. The girls are thinking, I'm going to meet some guy who can afford to pay for valet parking. Speaking of cars, the reason we're here is because of the intelligence of one Mr. Skip Weber at Weber Chevrolet, with 3 locations: Granite City, Columbia, Illinois, Olive 270, and online at WeberChevrolet.com. Skip, there are some things in life that just don't sound like a good idea. And in some cases, I'm not even sure I could explain why, but you just walk around and go, that just doesn't sound like a good idea. That's my emotional.
Hi, JC.
Hello. Somebody's having a good night. And again, it's one of those things where that's my emotional reaction to it. You tell me the logical reason why trying to buy a used car like you're using a vending machine. Amazon is selling used cars now.
Well, first off, if you have a trade-in, you will never be able to stretch your max value on your trade-in if you don't do it in person, because the people who are putting a number on it have got to be safe. If you've got a nice trade-in, you can say all day long, my trade is in good condition, but they must hedge their bets and limit what they can give you for the trade. That's number one, okay? Now, not everybody has a trade-in, but that'll cost you money to do that. The biggest thing about buying something online is the after the sale support. There is many things that you can get to help your ability to have a good ownership experience that you can get through the dealer, whether it's additional protection or service contracts. If something goes wrong, you bought online, then you have very limited things you can do. Not every customer establishes a relationship with us, but most of them do. I talk about us being the number one rated dealership, Chevrolet-wise, or dealership group in St. Louis based on DealerRater.com and a couple other metrics. And the reason being is if you have any kind of complaint and you put that out there, we handle it. A online entity can't do that. They don't have the ability to do it. They don't really have the stomach to do it. They're not local, so once you buy from them, they kind of wash their hands, and if there's a problem, you're on your own. And even if they try, it's very difficult to come through with it. You're not going to be able to drive it and make sure you like it. Forget about if it runs the way it's supposed to. You got to be able to like the way you fit in it and the way it looks when you see it and the way your whole family fits or whatever. There's just a million reasons that retail vehicles is different than retail anything else. It's not that much different than saying you could buy a house online. You just don't do it. A house is a little more complicated, but the difference between a house and a pair of shoes, the car is right there and probably leans closer to house than a pair of shoes.
And here we are with our first taste of winter weather for the general region. What percentage of cars even being manufactured by Chevrolet are something other than front wheel or all-wheel drive?
The only thing that Chevrolet makes that's not front or all-wheel drive is the Corvette.
Get out of here.
The Silverados are not front-wheel drive, the big full-size trucks, but they're still decent in the snow. But you can get a four-wheel drive, or you can get an all-wheel drive in all the trucks. But all these crossovers are either all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive.
All right, and now you know. I'm going to say something that should blow your mind. Can you imagine how different this community would be in the winter and how it would have affected what we see on television in terms of weather coverage if 1982 had never happened?
Oh, you're right. Because the 1982 blizzard was not supposed to happen. So everybody now wants to be the one who predicts it. And they err on the side of, let's assume that it's going to be way more than what our models predict. And so everything is just blown out of proportion.
There was a time when for you and me, the term European models meant something completely different. All right.
Exactly.
We got the Weber Automotive Group here. Weber Chevrolet with 3 locations, Granite City, Columbia, Illinois, Olive and 270, and online at WeberChevrolet.com. And, of course, the Ford dealership with service vehicles and just all sorts of interesting things if you run a business that involves delivering things or picking stuff up. So you can check it all out. Skip, we'll talk to you in a couple of days. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks.
One of the very last songs we managed to get out of Jimmy Buffett before his passing. Why don't you love me like my dog? It's JC here on the Sunday Showgram. We're here every Sunday morning from 7 to 9 a.m. If you miss any part of it, it goes to podcast tomorrow morning at NewsTalkSTL. Easiest thing to do is just download the free app, and then you get everything the radio station has to offer. Again, that's NewsTalkSTL, of course, at 94.1 and 101.9. I almost didn't want to talk about this today because it still makes me sad. Everybody loved Paul McCartney. Everybody idolized John Lennon. Everybody got a kick out of Ringo. But I'm telling you, my favorite Beatle always was George Harrison. I couldn't even necessarily tell you why, because for the duration of the nearly 10 years that the Beatles were together and famous and all that stuff, and just cranking out songs and albums like crazy, the Lennon-McCartney duo became so dominant that it really pinched George out of a lot of situations, most situations, as a matter of fact. And it really wasn't until about, 1970, 71, where George Harrison started releasing his own stuff and his own albums. And then people were like, well, holy cow, where have you been keeping this stuff? And the answer was simple. It was being suppressed, really. George Harrison died 24 years ago yesterday. And I didn't see anybody mention it. I didn't hear any mention of it at all. I have it on my calendar, and I sort of observe it every year by just cranking out about an hour or so of George Harrison's stuff, the solo work. Although songs like When I Needed Someone and Taxman, which he did with the Beatles, were good songs, but the solo stuff, I mean, come on. And George Harrison was so funny, but it was dry humor. So a lot of people didn't really sort of understand how funny he was. But George Harrison was a riot. I mean, for heaven's sakes, he mortgaged his house to be able to put up the money to make one of the Monty Python movies because he got into financial trouble. And George Harrison believed in it so strongly and was like, no, I'll do it. And I absolutely loved the collaboration between and among Bob Dylan, Jeff Lynne, Tom Petty, George Harrison. I'm going to play you this little soundbite here before I go into something else. I'm going to play this little soundbite from Tom Petty.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
He showed up one day and he came in with 2 ukuleles and he gave me one. He goes, "Gotta play this thing. It's great, let's jam, And I said, I have no idea how to play a ukulele. It's no problem. I'll show you, So we spent the rest of the day playing ukuleles, and I mean playing ukuleles. Strolling around the yard playing ukulele. My wrist hurt the next day. But he taught me how to play it, and a lot of the chord formations. And when he was going, I walked out to the car, and he said, well, wait, I want to leave some ukuleles here. And he'd already given me one, I said, well, I've got a bit. No, we may need more. And he opened his trunk, and he had a lot of ukuleles in the trunk. And I think he left 4 at my house, and he said, well, you never know when we might need them because everybody doesn't carry one around.
I just love stories like that. Tom Petty talking about his pal, George Harrison. And even when he got sick, really sick, like when he was on his deathbed, he had an almost childlike quality about him. Listen to this story from Ringo.
The last weeks of George's life, he was in Switzerland, and I went to see him, and he was very ill, and he could only lay down. And while he was being ill, and I'd come to see him, I was going to Boston because my daughter had a brain tumor, and I said, well, I've got to go. I've got to go to Boston. And he goes, it's the last words I heard him say, actually. And he said, do you want me to come with you? Oh, God. So, that's the incredible side of George. God, it's like Barbara Walters here, isn't it?
And we were live this morning with JC and the Breakfast Club. It is a sad day for rock and roll. And JC, I'm just going to take a stab at this, but I bet a Beatles album was one of your first.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I have a sister who's 5 years older than me, and she was the original Transistor sister when the Beatles made their first appearance in the Ed Sullivan Show back in 1964. I was right there from the beginning. We took a trip to the Abbey Road studios with the radio station back in 1989, and one of the real kicks that we got was there was an engineer there by the name of Brian Gibson. And Brian was the guy who engineered a lot of the stuff for the Beatles and also engineered a lot of George Harrison's stuff, including the acetate, as they called them back then, when you would basically do a demo. And he actually recorded the acetate for While My Guitar Gently Weeps. It was basically Brian Gibson on one side of a pane of glass, George Harrison and his guitar playing by himself, basically recording a demo way back in the 1960s. And Brian Gibson talked a lot about what you saw was what you got with George Harrison. He was the quiet Beatle, but he never got enough credit, really, I think, for his musical contribution and also for how funny he was. As a matter of fact, even if you look at a video like I've Got My Mind Set on You, it's a very funny video. And even if you go back to the days when Lorne Michaels of Saturday Night Live offered the Beatles, I think it was $3,000 at that time, as a joke to get back together and perform on Saturday Night Live, it was George Harrison who appeared on the cold opening of the show on Saturday Night Live with Lorne Michaels, kind of pretending like the Beatles were actually sort of considering doing it. So George Harrison, I think, underrated as a musician and in terms of his contribution to the Beatles as a group. And also, he was a very, very amusing guy in his own way.
Well, he had his own film company. It was called Handmade Films, and he produced and funded a couple of Monty Python films. He also funded Time Bandits. He appeared in Time Bandits, and also the spoof The Ruddles. And if you remember, he was in the movie The Ruddles, and he played a reporter.
That's right, and Eric Idle was so funny, and they did the thing about the Beatles are bigger than Rod, and then Rod Stewart showed up. I mean, that's very funny. And let me tell you something. People want to go to the video store. If you can find that Ruddles tape, and there was an album released too, that's very, very amusing stuff. George Harrison, we played a soundbite a little while ago when the Beatles did their special for ABC about, I want to say it was 5 or 6 years ago. It was that anthology that aired over the course of several nights. And George Harrison said, the fans of the Beatles gave their adoration and they gave their screams, but the Beatles gave their central nervous systems. And then he kind of chuckled a little bit as he reminisced. And all I can think about is that when John Lennon was taken from us in 1980, it was so shocking for everybody. Nobody got a chance to say goodbye to John Lennon. And Ringo and Paul McCartney spent several hours with George Harrison in the hospital earlier this week. And Paul McCartney was said to have be seen weeping openly. But the guys got a chance to get together and talk amongst one another one final time, and that makes me feel so good about this.
Yeah, it does. A lot of folks had a chance, too, to think and reminisce. And, JC, we thank you very much for joining us once again this morning. I'm sure all your listeners, sad day for them as well.
Really, the past, the present, and the future is just one big cycle.
It's JC's Sunday Showgram on NewsTalk STL.